Hello, I'm in the Programming Coder, and in this Python Beginner Series, Lesson 7, I'll be teaching you about for loops and while loops. So, let's get started. Now first, we need to know about what loops are and how they work in Python before we get started. Now, a loop is like it sounds. It repeats itself a certain number of times. And there are two types of loops in Python, the for loop and the while loop. And both of these loops are used to basically repeat repetitive code. So, like, say you have some code and you have the same command a number of times, like this. Well, using for loop or while loop, you can cancel these out and just type in the loop, and then type in the code that you need to repeat the number of times. So these are basically how loops work. And now we're going to learn about what the for loop is. Now, the for loop, there's many different ways to use it. The first one I'm using is called the range function. And using the range function in a for loop, the range function is kind of like when you use indexes in tuples or lists. There's a starting number, right? So starting number, like 1, for example, an ending number, like 5. But remember that the ending number is subtracted by 1, so it'd be 4 instead. And then there's a stepping number, like that. So a range function basically is similar, in a way, to an index, like this. So in the range is going to be a starting number, an ending number, and a stepping number, or stepping value, I like to say. So let's say for I, and when you're writing a for loop, you list a variable to this range function. So for this, the variable will be I, and for this for loop is going to loop the number of times it takes to the starting number to the ending number. So because the ending number is 4 and the starting number is 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, it's going to loop 4 times. We won't put a stepping value right now, so it'll just go by 1. But for this, the starting number will start at 1, and I will be equal to 1 at first. So if I print I in the beginning, and I enter this, first it's 1, then it's 2. So when it loops again the second time, it makes this I variable number 2. Then when it loops the third time, 3, loops the fourth time, 4. And let's try something a bit different with the range function. Instead of making it not have a stepping value, let's just add a stepping value to this. So like this. Let's just make it step by 2. So it starts on 1 and ends on 4, remember, because 5 minus 1, like indexes, is 4. So if you print I, what it's going to do is step by 1. So it's going to, or 2, I'm sorry. So 1 is going to print 1 first, and then I is going to go to 3. So let me just write this down. So these are the numbers, 1, 2, 3, and 4. And the stepping value is 2, so it's going to start at 1, print that, then it's going to go here to 3, and it's going to print this. But since there's no value here, it will just cancel out these two, and the loop will only print 2 and 4. So if I run this, it prints 1 and 3. I'm sorry, I said 2 and 4. But you see how the stepping value works for range functions, but also you don't have to type all this out for the range function. You could just say for I in range, and then you could just type the end value. That's all you need to type. So let's say I type 5. Is 0, so I will equal 0, then 1, then 2, then 3, then 4, then 5, or then 4, because it ends on 4. And the stepping value will be 1 on default, so it'll just go up by 1 each time. So if I print I here, we'll see that it just prints 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's how you use the range function for loops. Now we're going to try something a bit different. Instead of using the range function, we're going to use a list to do this. So let's make a list of fruits. So fruits equal, then put some fruits in here, like apples, bananas, oranges, and then what we're going to do is, oops, I forgot to assign it. Sorry guys. So apples, bananas, and oranges. So now it should work. Okay, good. And instead of saying for I in range, and then put some values in there, we're going to say for I in fruits. So you just type the fruit, or the list name, like this, and then you can put the colon, and then what I is going to do is I is going to equal each value of this list. So loops the first time, I is equal to apples. Loops the second time, I is equal to bananas. Loops the third time, I is equal to oranges. And we can see this by printing I. So when we print I, we'll see that it's apples, bananas, then oranges. So if I were to do this for a different list, like, I don't know, let's say we make another list, schools, or something, I don't know, not schools, let's do grades. I think it's a bit better. Grades equal to 80, 75, 60, 90, okay? And we're going to switch this up a bit. Instead of just printing I for the list, for I in grades, right, because that's the name of the list, we're going to put an if statement in here. And we're going to say, if I not equal to grades, or not grades, I'm sorry, let's just say 75. So if I not equal to 75, this stands for not equal to, what we're going to do is we're going to print, and then we're going to print I. So what's going to happen here is the computer will look through all these numbers, right? So look at 80, and that'll be valid because it's not equal to 75. Then I'll look at 75, and the if statement won't print it because it's equal to 75. Then look at 60, so it will print 60 because it's not equal to 75, and then it will print 90 because it's not equal to 75. So we should see the values 80, 60, and 90 come out of this for loop. So if I run this, yes, that's correct, 80, 60, and 90. So you can use if statements in for loops. I find it to be pretty useful sometimes, especially if you like to go a bit more complex with your code. And now for the last thing, there's two more things we need to learn about for loops. This is continue and break. We'll start with continue. So what the continue statement does is it makes the for loop go back and then go to the next value. So let's say we said something like for I in range, we'll just keep it 1 to 6. So we'll print out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then we'll have a no stepping value. So what I'm going to say is I'm going to put an if statement in here. I'm going to say if I less than or equal to 2, then I'm just going to continue it. So write this continue, a little continue statement in here. And then let's do something else like, and then print I. So what's going to happen here, we have our 5 numbers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So the continue statement will make the value, so let's say I equals 1, it will make 1 go back, and it will pick out the next value 2. So what's going to happen here is going to look at 1, okay, 1 is less than or equal to 2, so it will bring it back to the for loop, and it will skip it, and then it'll just go to 2. So 1 will not be printed because it will skip the print statement, and then 2 is equal to 2, so it will skip the print statement and go to the next value, so it'll go to 3, and it will take away 2, cancel 2, and cancel 1, and then 3 is not less than or equal to 2, so it'll print 3, and 4, and 5. So if you run this, we should see 3, 4, and 5 come out. And voila, it does come out. So that's how the continue statement works. For the break statement, it basically stops the for loop. So if I say for I in range, I'm going to do something a bit different here. I'm going to say if I greater than 4, or greater than or equal to 4, actually. So what we're going to see is we're going to break it, and what will happen is if it's greater than or equal to 4, the for loop will stop. So then let's print I. So when this happens, we should see the values 1, 2, and 3 pass this if statement and just print. But when it's equal to 4, it will just break the for loop, so we should see 1, 2, 3 come out. And yes, 1, 2, 3. Now, we could also do this for the continue statement and make it look alike. So how do we know they're different to each other? Well, let's try something a bit different. Let's say for I in range, and then let's do 1 to 6. And then let's say if I equal 3. We're going to continue it, and we're going to print I. If we see this happen and we use the continue statement, we will see it will print 1, 2, and then 4, 5, because 3 will go back, and it will skip 3 for printing. And yeah, that's what we see. But if we do the same exact thing, but we just use the break statement instead of the continue statement, we should see 4, 5, and 3 aren't printed in a moment. And then if we run this, see 1, 2, because it breaks at 3. So that's how the continue and break statements work in for loops, and that's all you need to know for for loops right now, and we're going to learn about while loops next. It's time to learn about while loops now. So the difference between a for loop and a while loop is that a for loop will have a number of times it will run that will be specified by the user, but a while loop keeps on running until its condition is false. So while loops have a condition, and this condition will make the while loop run while it's true. So if I have something like that, I wrote T for true really badly, but that's okay. It will run this code. But once the while loop, once the condition is false, the while loop will stop running its code. So this technically means that if a while loop is always true, that means the code will be infinite. So it'll just run forever, basically. So if I type something like while true, and then just type a simple command like print hello, it's just going to run forever. So if I click this, now the program's basically broken, and it just keeps printing out hello forever. Let me be right back. Okay, so even though that was pretty fun, while loops are not used for infinite outputs. But instead, while loops are used to make repetitive code run until a goal is met. So let's give an example of making an integer add by itself. So let's say a equals 0. And now let's just type while a is less than 10. So we're using this operation here, as you can see, and this operation will make a true until a is greater than 10. So let's first type print a, but if I just wrote this, it would just keep printing 0. So we don't want infinite code, so let's instead type out this now. We're going to use a method of reassignment. As you can see, we have learned this before, to make a equal itself plus 1. So if I run this, you will see that it prints 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So basically, this method can be written in a different way in Python, and usually the way it's written is like this: a plus equals 1. Now this way is usually more common amongst programmers and coders when typing out code, because it's just easier to write and probably just a bit of a cooler programming trick, you know what I mean. So let's just write the same loop again. So a equals 0, and then while a less than 10, we can print a, and then we'll say a plus equal 1. So this is basically the same thing as this, So if I run this, same output. You see? Now you can do this with subtraction, multiplication, and division, I think. Let's try it out. Let's do something a bit different. So let's do subtraction now, and let's make a equal to 10. And let's say while a is greater than 0, you're going to print a, and we're going to say a minus equal 1. And you can just see it goes 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So basically, you could use the same thing for multiplication and division. As you can see, let's just try this out a bit. So let's see, while or a equals 0, and then while a multiply, or while a is greater than or less than 64. I'm sorry, I'm getting a bit mixed up here. So let's print a, and let's say a asterisk equals, we'll multiply it by, I don't know, 2. So each time it will multiply by itself by 2. So if I run this, it doesn't really work. Okay, be right back. I have to check this out. Okay guys, my problem was that I was multiplying 2 by 0, and 2 multiplied by 0 is always 0. So instead, let's just make a equal to 1, and let's say while a is less than 64, print a, and then a asterisk equals 2, and then we should see it increase by 2, or get multiplied by 2, sorry, every time. Yeah, as you can see, it works. 1, 2, 4, 8, 16, 32. And now, lastly, we try it with division. So let's say a equals 64, and then let's say while a is greater than 0, or I'll just do 2. It'll make it easier. Print a, and then a slash equal 2. So if we run this, 64, 32, 16, 8, 4. So these are all of the operations that you can use in a while loop, and you have learned about while loops right now. It's now time for a quick quiz in for loops and while loops. For the first question, what does minus equal sign do in a loop? If you said something like subtracts by a number each loop, you are correct. For the next question, what does slash equal sign do in a loop? If you said divides by a number each loop, you are correct. Next question, what does break do in a loop? If you said stops the loop from running, you are correct. Next question, what does asterisk sign, equal sign do in a loop? If you said multiplies by a number each loop, you are correct. What does plus sign equal sign do in a loop? If you said adds by a number each loop, you're correct. And for the last question, what does continue do in a loop? If you said skips the current value and goes to the next value, you're correct. And that's it for the quiz. It's now time for your assignment in this lesson. For the first question, output this from a for loop. 1, 3, 5, 7. For the next question, make this list alphabet equals A, B, C, and D, and output A, C, and D from a for loop using an if statement. Output this from a for loop using break and continue with the range of starting number is 1. The ending number is 9, because remember, 10 minus 1 equals 9, and the stepping value is 2. And you have to output 1, 3, and 5. And then for the last question, use each operation we learned in a while loop and output something with the operations that we learned. And these are all the assignments for this lesson. It's now time for the answers to the assignment. Now, for the first question, we were asked to output this from a for loop, 1, 3, 5, and 7. So what I would do is I would type for I in range, and then inside the range function I would start on 1, and then I would end on 7, so I would type 8, because 8 minus 1 equals 7. and then we'll step by 2, because as we can see, it's going by 2, 1, 2, 2, 2, and then you just have to print I, and this would be the answer to the first assignment. For the second assignment, you are asked to make a list, alphabet, and it would equal to A, B, C, and D, and then output A, C, and D from a for loop using an if statement. So what I would do is I would just first make the list, like always, and then you just make it to A, B, C, D, and then what you do is you say for I in alphabet, remember, using a list in a for loop, and then you would put an if statement in here. You say if I not equal to B, then you would print I, because if I were B, then it wouldn't be printed because it would be equal to B, sorry. And then if you run this, you'll see A, C, D, and that would be the answer to the second question. Now, for the third question, you are asked to output this from a for loop using the break and continue statements, with range starting value 1, ending value 9, because remember 10 goes to 9, and then stepping value of 2. So 1, 3, 5. So using the continue statement for this, what I would do is I would type for I in range, then would be 1, 10, 2. Then you'd probably put an if statement in here. So if I greater than 6, because we want that 5 in there, we will say continue. And so that will not print out 7 and 9, because it will just go back to the next value. So if you run this, it works, 1, 3, 5. And now using the break statement, kind of the same story, I'm guessing. You would just say for I in range, 1, 10, 2. And then you would say if I greater than 6, you would just break. And when it's 7, it will just stop the for loop completely. Then just print I, and you will see 1, 3, 5. Same thing. So now for the last question, we were asked to use each, whoops, what did I do? We were asked to use each operation we learned in a while loop and output something with it. So you can do anything you want with it. So I would just make it pretty fast. So I'll just say while, I'll just make an A equals 0. And I'll say while A less than 5. I'll just say A plus equal 1. Then you run this. Oh, I forgot to print A. I'm sorry, guys. So you would just say while A less than 5, A plus equal 1. Then you would print A. And this would be the first operation we learned. And then for the second one, while, I'll just make A again. So while A less or greater than 0, that's what I should do. I'll just say A minus equal, whoops, I'm sorry guys, I actually made a mistake here. I should have said A equal to 5. So let me just cancel this. How do I do, oh my goodness. A plus equal 1, okay. Let's just make A equal to 5. And then while A is greater than 0, then you just say A minus equal 1. And I forgot to print A, but we know what happens. So now for the multiplication, A equals 1, while A less than 64, let's just say A multiply equal 2, we multiply A by 2 every loop, and then we print A. And it will just say 2, 4, 8, 16, 64. And then if we do while A is, oh, actually I have to make the variable first, so let's see, division, let's make it equal to 64. And then say while A is greater than 2, we're just going to divide it by 2 each loop, then print A, and that would be the answer to the fourth question. So we have completed the assignment, and next lesson we'll learn more about Python coding.